So, hello again, everybody. I'm happy to welcome you again after the coffee break to our workshop on translatability in nanomedicine. I hope you had the time to get some coffee. I did. And I have the pleasure now to introduce the next speaker. It's Sue Metcalfe. She is a senior research assistant at the University of Cambridge. And she is founder of the company Live NanoRx. The company has been founded in 2013, and the company works on the regeneration of lost body tissues, especially in the brain. Sue Metcalfe has won the Nanomedicine Award in 2017 and also the Businesswoman of the Year Award 2017 in Cambridge. And well, I'm very happy to have her talk now, and she sent us her talk, so we will it's already registered, and but she is with us and she will be there to answer some questions after the talk.
So hi, I'm Sue Metcalfe of Live Nanotherapeutics, and I'm going to talk you through some of the steps of developing an invention from the University of Cambridge through to reaching patients. So in the university, we have a strong infrastructure and management, and that allows us to get on with our science and to publish and to collaborate. And during that time, I made a discovery, which was that a stem cell growth factor called LIF, L-I-F, is a powerful healing factor that can be used to treat patients with multiple sclerosis. And I then invented the LIF in a nanoparticle formulation to actually treat the patients. But here I ran over to the tech transfer office, telling them that I have this invention, please can you help me with the patent cost? And they didn't like it. They felt it was too soon and too risky. So then I had a dilemma. What do I do? Do I publish this discovery, which is good for grants, or do I patent it on my own? And that would be a route to reach patients. And you need to have a patent around your an invention in order to get to big pharma, who ultimately are the only people who can push something that's a therapeutic towards patient benefit. So I chose to patent, and that was the start of bench to bedside. So the first thing you need as soon as you have a patent in place that you're self-funding is to get the money. And here, in addition to also getting the money, you really need to grow your business. And so this is a different world. It's no longer the university. You no longer have that infrastructure supporting you and protecting your ability to grow. So now, on the outside of the university, I had a huge good fortune of attracting mentors and working with both in Europe and also the Judge Business School in Cambridge. Clearly, the funding was a critical need, and I was fortunate to raise money from the government and also received an award from Merck Serono. So that allowed me to keep moving forward, but very early. So the purpose of all this activity was to treat an autoimmune demyelinating disease called multiple sclerosis. And here, the people who develop multiple sclerosis are young, and this affects their nerves, so it affects their movement, and also generally it can attack any nerve at any time because it's autoimmunity. And you can have a year-on-year loss of brain volume. And this, remember, is occurring in the young people. And it is arguably a disgrace that most people who develop MS remain untreated, even though there are treatments which will suppress the immune response and delay the progression of that loss of brain volume. The UK is one of the worst at looking after its MS patients, and the UK has one of the highest rates of progression of relapsing remitting MS, which is the first stage, to progressive MS, which is when the nerves no longer recover. And this is Matthew, who was a Canadian, and he made contact with me and the company when he heard that we were using a totally different approach, which is a natural approach using biologics to try and treat MS. And in the MS community, the worst fear is worsening disability. And this is why Matthew had recognized what we were doing, that we're trying to stop progression of MS and also not only stop progression, but actually repair the myelin that's being damaged by that autoimmune disease. And we have proof of concept that we can do this. And this is in a mouse model of MS, which mimics the symptoms. And here we immunize a mouse, which is a happy mouse running around its cage. We immunize it against its own myelin. And the inflammatory immune response against that myelin then starts to attack myelin in the nerves of that mouse. And within 14 days, it becomes paralyzed. And that's shown here. So here you've got mice which have been immunized against their own myelin 14 days earlier, when they're running around and happy. But now you can see the profound effect that autoimmune disease has on their ability to move. And we took mice at this stage and we treated them with our LIF nanotherapeutic. So remember, this is a nanotherapeutic which delivers the stem cell growth factor to the mice. And this is aiming to protect the mice from that autoimmune disease and also, perhaps also, repair the myelin that's been damaged by the autoimmune disease. So within 4 days of treatment, these mice start walking again. So this is within 4 days. I mean, they're not running, but they are walking. And within 10 days, there is a significant improvement in their mobility. So we started with the discovery in the university that LIF can protect the brain from MS pathogenesis. And my first position in the university was say, well, this is great. We can actually take LIF and we can use LIF to treat diseases that are autoimmune. But then I realized there's a problem because the half-life of LIF is 20 minutes. And that stage, being in the university, we were collaborating and had interactions with the Yale University, where they were really leading the world in nanotechnology and nanomedicine. And so I connected with Yale and we invented the formulation of LIF as a nanoparticle. And so now we've extended the half-life of the LIF. And not only that, we can actually target the LIF to specific sites. So the cartoon of the nanoparticle here is where the blue is in fact PLGA, which is an FDA approved gel, and this forms the nanoparticle. But when we make the PLGA into the nanoparticle, we also include into that gel the LIF, which is the red spheres inside that matrix. And we also, on the surface of the nanoparticle, we attach avidin. So now we've got a matrix which can deliver the nanoparticle, deliver the LIF, but that nanoparticle is going to slowly dissolve. It's the same material as soluble stitches. And on the surface, we can attach antibody. So we can make this nanoparticle into a targeting device like a drone, which will then deliver the cargo to specific sites as determined by the antibody on the surface. And this is the particle that we used in the mice. So here we have a nanoparticle loaded with a LIF, and we target to CD4. The CD4 is a marker on the surface of those lymphocytes that are attacking the myelin. So we can attach these nanoparticles onto the lymphocyte and attempt to change that lymphocyte and stop its attack. And the first thing we discovered was when we have a nanoparticle formulation of the LIF, that it has 1,000-fold more potency than LIF itself. And we checked to see if it did bind to the CD4 T cells, and you can see here it does. Not only does it bind to those cells, but the LIF needs to simply be on the surface of those cells in order to signal, because the LIF receptor is on the surface. And it's that LIF signaling through that surface receptor that communicates to the genome and switches on the Treg cells, which are essential to protect against the autoimmunity. So we're able to switch those cells which were attacking myelin into cells which protect myelin. And effectively what we've done is combine the nanotechnology with the deep biology of controlling the immune response. And effectively also that lymphocyte has become a Trojan horse, because those lymphocytes are migrating through the blood to the sites of inflammation. And at the same time, they're stopping those sites of inflammation from being inflamed, because LIF is anti-inflammatory. And the cells are slowly releasing, the cells and the particles are slowly releasing the LIF exactly where we need it. And the final trick is the fact that these Treg cells, once they're in the Treg phenotype, they themselves start to release LIF. And so now the cells take over the value of the LIF as a therapeutic. And this provides an antigen-specific self-tolerance and also a stem cell niche for healing. This is some work from a different lab where they show that these lymphocytes do cross the blood-brain barrier. And here you can see lymphocytes, which are T cells, the ones that we've attached our nanoparticles to, and they're migrating across the blood-brain barrier into the brain parenchyma, exactly, again, where we want them. And you can imagine the Trojan horse effect with these cells being coated with the nanoparticles. Something we didn't expect was when we looked at those mice that I showed you, and we looked at the brain of those mice, the mice that had continuing paralysis, and they were treated with empty nanoparticles, so they had no LIF in the side, then those had a high concentration of interleukin-6, which is the inflammatory cytokine that drives MS and the Th17 cells. And so that was understandable because we knew those cells, those mice had crashed and they were paralyzed. But what we didn't expect was that by treating the mice in the treated group, where LIF was included in the nanoparticle, the treated group had recovered their normal background status of low levels of IL-6. So we delivered the LIF nanoparticles into the periphery of the mouse, and in those mice that were paralyzed and then started walking again, the LIF behind the blood-brain barrier, the LIF had induced a lowering of the inflammatory disease-linked IL-6. Another feature we went on to ask, since MS is causing this autoimmune demyelination in the patients, what about can we get repair of the myelin? And this has been a huge push by Big Pharma, and there have been clinical trials focused on trying to get myelin repair in patients. But all those trials recently have failed. None have been successful. And we thought, well, what about LIF Nano? So let's test it in a preclinical demyelination model this time. So this is demyelination, it's focused for myelin. And so you can see here on the left, this is a cross-section at the top of a nerve axon, and the cross-section shows you the black staining of the myelin around that axon. And so this is the fatty lipid sheath that normally protects that axon and allows it to both conduct electricity, so that's the nerve impulse down the axon, and at the same time the myelin sheath is supporting the metabolism of the axon, so it keeps it healthy. And you can strip off that myelin using lysolecithin, so you can induce a small lesion inside the brain of a mouse called the corpus callosum, and then that strips off the myelin. So now you've got these naked axons, and you can ask, do these axons produce more myelin? And can you induce the myelin precursor, the oligodendrocyte precursor cells, which are necessary for myelination to produce that myelin sheath? And so we did that experiment, and we treated the mice into the lesion with a single low dose of the LIF nanoparticles. The control mice had exactly the same treatment, but there was no LIF inside the nanoparticle. And the effect was quite profound. So you can see here that single low dose of the LIF delivered by the nanoparticles has led to myelin repair. And since it's a single low dose, we believe that the effect of once you start triggering the natural process of myelin repair through the oligodendrocytes, then that becomes self-sustaining. And that's what leads to this natural way of repairing myelin. So at the end, we've come up with a nanotherapeutic, and essentially it's like a targeted synthetic stem cell, because LIF is the growth factor that is essential for stem cells. And if you do a stem cell transplant, but you can get an effect. You can actually take the supernatant from stem cells and use that to replace the effect of the stem cells. Not only that, you can take LIF off the shelf and use that to treat a model, and you will reiterate the effect of stem cells. So stemness is a property of LIF. So now we've replaced the need for the cells, and we simply have synthetic stem cells by putting LIF inside the nanoparticles. And today we're taking this all forward. As I said, we started in Cambridge, in the university, and we've now moved forward, got the funding, pushed forward, got more funding, started to get interactions with people who treat MS. And this is our clinical trial panel leader, where we're aiming to get a clinical trial in MS as soon as I can get the 10 million, which is necessary to actually produce these nanoparticles in GMP grade and actually run the trial. So that's all good, but it wasn't all easy. And as anyone will understand, if you step out of the norm and try to push your way forward, there are times when it gets quite lonely. And so this is an image of myself in my kitchen, and this is representing the loneliness that you can have when you're trying to pull this together. And it was at this stage that the Judge of Business School picked me up. They took me under their wing in Cambridge, and they started to help me, provide me mentorship, all for free. And that was my first discovery of my misunderstanding of the business world. I thought the business world would be full of pinstripe suits and umbrellas, and didn't really want to know about crazy scientists. I was totally wrong. The business community in Cambridge became valued friends and mentors. And a second pain was when you're trying to get the money, you're writing all these grant applications, but some of the assessors don't really want to be having this threat of a synthetic stem cell when perhaps they have an interest in all the huge billions of funding going into regenerative medicine using actual stem cells. It might or might not be that reason, but however, many of my grant applications were binned despite having high scores. And that is where Europe came in. And this was through networking. And here I met in Cambridge someone called Eric Mays, and he has a Cambridge company called Endomag. And Eric was also a member of European TAB. And at the end of our chat, Eric said, "Why don't you join the TAB?" So I did. And so following that conversation, I then was sat in the position of that lady on the left, and I was being interviewed by Florian Kemmerich, who was another TAB expert. And Florian had experience in regenerative medicine, and that was in 2016. We got on well. We had a 2-hour discussion, and after I got back to Cambridge, and I was still pushing forward, and I was building up my partnerships, trying to build the company, and I asked Florian if he might become involved. And I was delighted that he said yes, and Florian is now the chairman of Lift Nano. And I went on, and the company was awarded the Nanomedicine Prize in 2017. And I wanted to emphasize here the importance of nanomedicine. We have to drive this forward. It's the only way forward for therapeutics in the world where we need global access at low cost. We've got so many unmet needs that today are, first of all, with a high carbon footprint in order to meet those unmet needs with pharma, but no one is realizing and picking up that in order to get global access to treat disease at low cost, you have to go the nanomedicine route. So there's a global economic demand for low carbon footprint, and these synergize, and we can meet the global demand, and we can also meet the issue of climate change. So this is the way forward. We're reducing the impact of the carbon footprint at least 1,000-fold, and pharma will be joining us in order to achieve their own aims of reducing the carbon footprint. And this is ready to show you how things grew out of that pathway of meeting with Eric Mays and interacting and networking. So you never know what path you are on, where it's going to take you. But the important thing is to keep going forward. And so now I've been elected onto the Etpn board, and this is now changing my environment of being alone, and is now enriched by these people who sit on the board together. And Gio Tosi is someone I've identified here because I'd already been working with Gio, and he was my partner on one of those grants that got rejected to the Multiple Sclerosis Society. And Gio is an expert in the blood-brain barrier and nanomedicines. And the bid had been rejected because the referee insisted that you never get across the blood-brain barrier. But you've already seen, yes, we do. And you've already seen, yes, we can repair myelin. And so this day, imaged here, is the very first time I'd met Gio. And so this, although we were working together, it shows again how interacting with the community and networking is a value and pulls everyone together in this strong focus to get over the prejudice and also deliver the value of nanotherapeutics. And this, members of this board here sat around this table, went on to work together, and we wrote a white paper on this very issue of pushing the value of nanomedicine actually to patients. So we're no longer at the bench, we're now in the clinic. And that really is the bottom line of this talk. You can do it. And the value of meeting people and also of the tab. So thank you for listening, and please don't hesitate to ask any questions.
So thank you very much, Sue, for this really amazing talk. It was really interesting, and you gave us many good arguments for how important it is to work together with people, so to collaborate translationally, also with other people in Europe, transnationally, so about things that EURONANOMED is about. So that was really, really impressive.
Thank you.
I have one question in the chat, which is to you, or maybe also to Lorena. Someone asked, what would you do differently if you got the opportunity to redo some of the steps you took in the past years? In addition, if you would have to advise researchers who would like to start a company or a spin-off or to scale up the company they have, what would be your top 3 recommendations?
No pressure. Fine. Well, first of all, I think that there are 3, certainly the first mandate is the quality of the reason for you going forward. You must know and believe in what you're doing and know it's absolute pristine quality. So that's one, and therefore it becomes the basis of the route for you to grow forward. Secondly, I think for me, I needed to patent the discovery, because if it's big, you need to protect it. And it's very easy to go around and be excited, and certainly I was, and it's not my instinct to patent something and be quiet about it. But when I didn't get the support from the tech transfer office, I realized that I really had to bite that bullet. And so I think that's not doing anything different. It's doing exactly what I did. And thereafter, you can keep focused, keep absolute focus on where you're going. Remember the bridge going across the chasm, and you need money. If you start dithering and thinking you're halfway across, and then you're going to turn around and look back and say, have I done the right thing? You fall off. You have to keep complete focus and keep listening and listening and listening, because everyone you talk to, you will learn from. It doesn't matter where they are, who they are. Talk to patients, talk to individuals, but always listen. And this has been, it's been an amazing journey for me. I'm very poor, definitely much more poor than I was at the start, but I'm very rich in the environment that has come around me. So I think that's the answer.
Thank you. Lorena, do you want to add something?
I absolutely agree with what Sue has recommended, but I would perhaps add to start looking for money immediately. We were a bit shy to discuss with investors at the very beginning because we thought we were not ready. But I think before you get a successful investment, you have to get rejected many, many times. So if you can start talking to investors early on, you will probably manage to get investment earlier. And at the end, for every step of the way, you need to be supported by funds. Certainly, competitive funding has been instrumental for us. So it's not only investors that one has to look into. So I would also recommend to look at the different opportunities at European scale, particularly now with the European Innovation Council. So I think those two things.
Yes, I agree. The difficulty with a therapeutic is the amount of money that you need, and so I was a bit cautious about getting VC funding, which becomes a drip, and really they can very quickly take away all your equity. So, and that was a learning curve as well. But and absolutely appreciate what you say.
So thank you very much for your talk. And this was a perfect transition to the next talk. It's about Ipr management. And Sue, you said in the beginning that you asked yourself the question, should I publish or should I file a patent? And I think it's an important question that scientists ask themselves sometimes. So the next speaker is Carson Richter. He is a patent attorney. He studied biochemistry in the beginning in Cambridge and Oxford, and then decided to become a patent attorney, and he worked for different companies. In the moment, he's working for EUROIMMUN company working in medical diagnostic. And well, we are looking forward to your talk.
Well, thank you very much. Olaf, can you actually hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Fantastic. Then let's assume that hopefully everybody else can hear me too. I'm trying to give you access to my screen. Did that work by any chance? No, probably not. Just a second.
I think I see your screen, but I don't see your presentation.
Okay, let's try again. Is that better? Can you see the presentation?
Yes, now it's the presentation.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much for everybody for your patience. And I suggest let's stay at Cambridge, just for a bit of motivation in case someone's not yet convinced that patents do play a certain role. What looks like a giant metal fungus here is the entrance of the famous Laboratory of Molecular Biology. And I think it's a very good example to present in case anybody has a doubt, because this state-of-the-art laboratory opened in 2013 costs, I think, something like 200 million British pounds. And the LNP are proud to say that about a third of the cost was covered by royalties obtained based on patents. Most of them, of course, relating to humanized antibodies. So it's just an example that shows it can be done and that substantial funding can be obtained. Now, some people might argue, well, at Cambridge, there's such a density of Nobel laureates, it may work there, but it may not work somewhere else. This is an example from the place where I work. This is EURONANOMED and was founded by Winfried Stöcker in, I think, 1887. Who was at that time an assistant professor at the local university and invented what he referred to as biochips, so essentially a tissue-based chip for diagnosing autoimmune disease. Probably wouldn't work with MS, but it works very well with other autoimmune disease. So essentially, he realized there was a need to manufacture these reagents which weren't commercially available at that time. And similar to Sue, he just did it. He asked the university as well, and they weren't interested. I mean, that was the 1980s. They didn't have a tech transfer office, but I mean, even if they had one, I'm not sure whether things would have worked out any different. So similar to Sue's success story, he filed patents based on his own money. I mean, he was a very successful medical doctor, so he might have had some money, but still was a bit of risk. He founded the company EURONANOMED. In fact, he initially hired one person, a sales manager, while he kept working in the lab and actually manufactured the chips that the other person would then sell. But this business of two people has now grown as of January 2021 to more than 3,000 employees and sales. I think it's now more than 400 million euros. And in fact, it has attracted substantial attention by large companies and was eventually in January 2018 purchased by PerkinElmer for $1.3 million US. So it's not the case that it works only at Cambridge. Now, fortunately, some of the previous speakers have already mentioned the importance of patents, however, but I think I should again emphasize a basic principle in industry, since we have a lot of people from academia here. It gives you a lot of scientific and academic fame if you are the first to invent something. However, and this does not necessarily mean that you will earn a lot of money in the end. As Confucius already said, the easiest way to come up with something new, he called it learned wisdom, is by imitation. So essentially, if you're a company, if we take the position of a company who's got the money and who has funds to do something, let's consider that it is not forbidden to simply copy technologies, counterfeit projects. By default, that's okay. You may not get famous as a breakthrough award-winning scientist then, but you may still be commercially successful. So if a company, if you take the perspective of a company, if they have the choice, they will rather save R&D costs and copy someone else's product rather than develop a new product from scratch. And let's not forget that in academia, you may get a huge publication in a major journal based on a discovery like Sue's, but let's say 10 years later, if the customer has the choice to buy your product or someone else's, he will likely have forgotten about that, and he may be not more interested in the price. Therefore, it is actually good to force people to buy your products if you can, because otherwise they may not do that. And actually, it's not a matter only for industry relevant products, but also for academic results, for research. I mean, we've all heard stories of referees who will look at your grant applications and simply take some of your ideas or even results and try to print them by themselves. It's something I had several examples in the past in my experience as a patent attorney. What happened is that people filed a manuscript with a journal for review, and only then, after the submission of the manuscript, filed a patent application. And then 1.5 years, what happened is that just before their own patent application was published, someone else's was, and the inventor would be a famous scientist, or at least a well-known, renowned scientist in the field working on something similar. It might even be someone who had been recommended as a reviewer. Such a coincidence. And just from industry, this is a very striking example from a Northern Germany company here, who was also a company, a university spin-off by an engineer. They were one of the first to develop a wind engine that was suitable for routine use. And this guy, he absolutely clearly did not care about IP. He said, let's invest in development. We will always be a step in front of the others. We need no IP protection. And what actually happened, there was a case of industrial espionage. Two agents from a competitor were gained access to one of these wind machines. They climbed the stairs to the booth where it is operated. They copied lots of data. They had USB sticks. And in the end, the competitor then filed patents and used these patents to try to drive Enercon out of business. And actually, in quite a number of countries, they were very close. And almost successful, or very actually successful. And Enercon, in the end, for example, they would not be able to export their wind engines to the US for a couple of years, and they estimate that they lost 200 million euros and could not create 300 jobs that would otherwise have been created. So just another reason to protect results. Also, consider here the citation by one of the previous Chinese prime ministers. And the interesting thing I think one should always keep in mind is that the Chinese politicians are, I think, without exception, all engineers and natural scientists or IT people. So by contrast to Europe, where a lot of politicians have a totally different backgrounds, maybe from history, law, or even theology. And these politicians, these Chinese politicians, have a totally different approach to topics such as resources, inventions, energy. I think that's quite a difference. So how do we actually protect results? Well, the two previous speakers at least have already emphasized patents, but there are also trade secrets. So you could essentially keep your inventions secret if that's feasible. I'll get to that in a minute. But what you could also do is that you can limit access to essential resources. For example, if you have a unique antibody, then you just don't share it with anybody. You put it in your fridge, you keep the cell line, and you just don't share it. You may even publish results related to that. So these are some of the strategies that could and should be considered for protecting results. Now, which strategy should be considered? Well, one consideration is, well, is it actually possible to keep the technology secret? Can the product be analyzed? If you sell something and everybody using analytical chemical tools can analyze it, then there's not much of a point trying to keep it secret. Will the results be published? An important point for academics. If that is the case, then obviously trade secret is not an option either. Another point quite relevant to startup companies and academic labs is there a high staff turnover. If you have a PhD student who will be able to use the technology, knows about the stuff, but will leave the lab in 2 or 3 years' time, not much of a chance to keep it secret in the long term. Is someone else likely to obtain similar results independently? Sometimes different groups follow the same line of investigation. There could be a double invention. If that is the case, then trade secrets are not the preferred option, but a patent rather is. Can patent protection be obtained in essential jurisdictions? For example, I do a lot of work for EURONANOMED, and we try to protect diagnostics, which in some countries like China and the US, unfortunately at the moment, are somewhat difficult to protect, especially if we're looking at diagnostic methods, simply because the patent law is so different from the European patent law. Are the results patentable at all? Sometimes small incremental improvements may be important. You just use a different version of the protein that previously people used, and it's not always clear whether this is patentable at all. are the inventors able to run additional experiments? I'm glad that we have heard about examples where patents could obviously be filed, and I expect also were granted, but there's a lot of resources involved, and I'm not only talking about the money, the fees for attorneys and for patent offices, but also the inventor's time should not be forgotten. They will have to be involved in drafting the patent application. They will have to explain to the patent attorney the core features of the technology. They may have to run additional experiments, which may not even be helpful for the academic publications. So this is something that should be borne in mind as well. And not in the least, whenever you publish a patent attorney, a patent application, which inevitably happens if you file one sooner or later, usually after 18 months, if the patent application is not withdrawn, then you have to share your knowledge and possibly also your reagents with everybody else. The idea being you get a patent in return for sharing your results with the community so other people might use it and further develop it. And obviously that doesn't work if you share only part of the information and the invention can actually not be practiced by anyone else. So sometimes people approach me and ask, well, I have a certain antibody, I'd like to patent it. Well, in many cases, you could. On the other hand, at the latest, after 20 years, even if there's a patent granted, you will lose protection. And it might be a better option simply to keep the antibody somewhere in the fridge, not give it to people, and not patent it. That might be longer protection than just the 20 years. Always depends on the individual case, of course. However, if these points are met, then a trade secret protection is probably preferred. And as Lorena also emphasized, she said, well, it's often more than one patent in the case of a medicine as part of a nanomedical device. It could be the drug itself, it could be the formulation, it could be a method for making the formulation, it could be one for stabilizing the formulation, which I think is not always so easy. So there's lots of points where you could start arguing, well, this is something that I might protect, and ideally work on at least 2 or 3 if you can, and you might want to patent 1 or 2 at least, but you might also complementarily keep some of the components simply secret. What is actually a patent? Well, a patent is a right conferred by an administration from a certain country, and it implies the right to exclude others from using the patented invention, which may be a method, a product, or in certain countries like Europe or the UK, a new use of a previously known product. So what does that actually mean? Look at a picture taken here from CeBIT 2010, an IT exhibition, which I'm afraid no longer exists. But you see here a very empty booth. Essentially, an Asian company had rented this booth, which is quite expensive, and meant to impress their customers with lots of products. What actually happened is that a patent owner heard about this and sent in the police and the customs for a raid. So they confiscated all the products. So it looks rather empty, which will certainly also impress the customers, but not in the way intended by the patent infringer. So this is one way. I keep telling clients, well, essentially the worst thing that can happen is you have a working factory which makes a product, and on one morning, 7 a.m., the police arrive, and they will simply arrive with an order to shut down your company without any warning, without shutting the protection, because someone else has discovered that you infringe their patent. Now, this is very harsh and doesn't happen too often. What usually happens is that you are heard as a patent infringer, you can present arguments, but you usually have very little time to build up a protection and a defense strategy. So a patent is something that is quite a sharp weapon. A patent is a territorial immaterial right. What does that mean? It's territorial. It affects only the territory of the country which grants this patent. So if you have a UK patent, then everybody, a UK patent only, everybody else will be able to use the patented technology in all the countries around the world except for the UK, which means that in many cases you may be interested in obtaining patent protection in more than one country. A patent is an immaterial right. What does that mean? Well, you can't touch it. It's registered, it's granted and registered somewhere in the registry, which is one of the reasons why investors, why bankers really love patents. Because, for example, you cannot steal a patent in the conventional way. Like if someone has an important machine which is an asset of the company and the company goes bankrupt, who knows what happens to the machine? People might even steal parts of it. You cannot conventionally steal a patent. It stays in the register, and even if the company is bankrupt, and if everything is handled the right way, the patent will survive, which is very helpful for bankers because, as you know, many startups ultimately do not make it. The grant of the patent, however, does not mean that the owner has the right to use the technology. Why is that the case? So they may exclude others from using the technology, but they may not be able to use it by themselves because there may be other people who have patents who are also needed. And if we look at very complex technical technologies in nanomedicine, then there may be a lot of things involved and many patents may be involved. So this is something you have to bear in mind, but I will not cover this in detail today. And not in the least, again, the inventors need to disclose to the public how the technology can be practiced. That is a disadvantage of a patent, certainly. How do I actually obtain patent protection? Well, essentially, it starts with an idea. Then I have to file a patent application. So essentially, the inventor usually consults with a patent attorney who has experience in the field. A patent application is granted. It's not granted. It's examined by a patent examiner at the patent office, like the European Patent Office, which is a person who has a technical degree, but they do have certain limitations. For example, many of them have never actually worked in a lab. So they may have a totally different perspective on questions like what is actually inventive, what is obvious, and that's something a scientist should be prepared for. And after a couple of months, the patent examiner issues something that we refer to as a search report. Well, essentially, he writes a document which lists documents from the prior art published before the date of the patent application filing, and essentially assesses their relevance. For example, you could say, well, I found a document D1 and it destroys the novelty of 5 of your 10 patent claims. This is an important step, and I strongly advise anyone who files a patent to take the time at this point to look at the patent application and reevaluate critically, is this going to work? Because at this point, you still have the opportunity to withdraw the patent application, which means that it will not be published. So, because if from this point on you do nothing, then after 18 months after the patent filing, it will be published and it you cannot go back. So essentially what you wrote in your patent application will now be available to all your competitors, to the entire scientific community, to be downloaded for free. The other way around, if you want to know what your competitors do, then a cheap way is to check the patent registers and see if they have filed a patent application. Well, then the grant proceedings continue. The applicant replies and files arguments and so on and so on. And in the end, the patent is granted or rejected. And if you're not pleased with the patent, with a decision by the patent office, you can file legal remedies. You can file an appeal or similar. Some of the advantages of patents, one has already been stressed today. Inventors really like patents compared to trade secrets. Again, trade secrets may often actually be the better way to protect technologies, but see it from the point of an investor. If the investor sees that a an independent patent examiner with a technical degree has found that this is patentable, it is novel and inventive. That's one thing. If the inventor himself says, well, it's a great thing, but we're keeping it secret, well, I'm not sure that will be very convincing to the investor, whether this is justified or not. It's just something to bear in mind. A patent application proves that the inventors were in possession of the invention. We've just heard how important networking is, and networking inevitably means that some kind of information is shared with other people. It could be a customer, it could be a sponsor, investor, it could be a colleague. So at some point you have to tell, as an inventor, other people about your invention. And just imagine you see someone informally at a symposium. You have 3 scientists who talk together about an invention and in fact come up with a further development. They come up with an invention of their own. And it is very difficult to work out later on who actually had the important idea. And if you talk to people and have no kind of protection, then someone else might say, well, yes, we talked about it, but originally it was actually my idea. Very difficult situation then. So a patent application shows that on a certain day you filed something with a patent office, you get a stamp with a date, and you can prove that at the very latest, at this very date, you were in possession of the invention, which is the end of many discussions. Patents make technologies transferable and tradable for these reasons. Not only there's the protection, but actually there are standard agreements like royalty agreements. There are certain standards that people can use to evaluate the value of technologies. I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be done, and there are ways to trade technology then. What are the challenges? Well, one of them is, well, if you have a breakthrough discovery, like in the treatment of MS, then it may be obvious that there is an invention. But in many cases, inventors do not realize they have made an invention. For example, if there is something, there's an incremental improvement of an invention, it may not be obvious that this is good enough for filing a patent application. You need experience. You need experience and need to know what patent examiners accept. Another point, again, patent examiners are not infallible. They may make mistakes. If you have a funded, say you funded a patent application on your own, you paid for it by yourself, and then you get a negative search report simply because the patent examiners did not understand your invention. That is very discouraging, and you have to go on and work on it. In many cases, the patent examiners actually accept good arguments, and there may be a complete turn in their view, but do not expect that you will get confirmation that your invention is patentable in the first search report. Again, you need a lot of data, and also you need to bear in mind that the patent application you file may be very different from the patent you obtain in the end. Let me use this example to illustrate that. Let's imagine we have a claim, we have a patent application, not a grant, an application at first, which protects a car having wheels, and some number of wheels. Let's imagine after the search report, you realize there's disturbing prior art, and you have to limit your patent to a car having 2 to 8 wheels. That may still be a very useful invention. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I would expect that many people would find this helpful. Furthermore, as the grant proceedings go on, there may be additional prior art still far away, and you may have to limit your patent application to 4 to 8 wheels, which might still be useful. Then only just before the patent is invented, and this frequently happens, someone presents you with new prior art, and your patent attorney sees no way other than limiting your patent to a car having 7 wheels. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I would expect that we're approaching a stage where your patent may be a bit pointless. At this point, you have to be really careful and guide your patent attorney, because again, in some cases, it may not be quite so obvious. So essentially make sure that the patent you get in the end actually corresponds to useful patent protection, actually broadly, reasonably broadly covers your technology so other people cannot easily design around the technology. Do not underestimate the state of the art. Just as an example, this is an opposition which I led a couple of years back, and a young company had patented an incubation tray. I'm not going to go into the details too much, but you see that it had this corrugated surfaces. And essentially, they filed a very broad patent, which essentially said a tray with corrugated surfaces. And well, I presented the state of the art you see below. First of all, the white box is essentially the sort of box that fast food restaurants use for curry sausages. You get your curry sausages in one of these. And if you can look at it, it has these two features. It has corrugated walls, and it can be used as an incubation tray. Another one here was a cookie jar, essentially for packaging cookies, which also has two trays and corrugated surfaces. And the young company owners, the CEOs, were quite upset at the oral proceedings with the European patent offices when the patent office agreed with us that the sausage tray is novelty destroying for their most important claims. So the problem was they simply had not searched the prior art very thoroughly, but had simply applied for a very broad patent, and that was probably a little over ambitious. So essentially, just a couple of points of advice. Protection is essential for attracting investments, and also be very careful before publishing anything, because again, if you publish before filing the patent application or even submit the manuscript or share the data, then you may compromise your patent application. In some countries like the US, there's what we refer to as a grace period. So you can still have like a year to file the patent, but it does not work in most countries like this. I suggest that if you do not have experience, get in touch with someone who has. That should be an experienced patent attorney, and you should discuss with them what you actually want to achieve with the patent. What's the purpose of the patent? You want long-term protection? Do you simply want on a short-term basis to impress investors? Do this. The strategy in the prosecution can, for example, be tailored to get an early positive search report, which can be very instrumental in getting funding. And also, as Lorena said, consider several ways to protect the results, because for whatever reason, a single patent application may not be enough. Get involved. If you're leading the project, do not leave the patent application to the patent attorneys or external consultants. Let's also not forget that at university, most of the tech transfer offices do not employ experienced patent attorneys, but people who are employed on a fixed term basis. They may be postdocs who actually have very limited experience in IP. Do not rely on other people. Look at what's going on yourself, do communicate with the patent attorneys, and do not simply accept what they say could be done, because they will primarily focus on what could be done to obtain a patent, but whether this patent that can be obtained will actually be useful for your strategy, that's a point they will not be able to consider. I hope this is useful, so thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Carsten, for this nice insight in patents and in intellectual property. I think we learned a lot, and I'm looking if there are questions. I don't see any questions in the moment. No, I don't see.
And may I comment on one more point? One colleague said, well, is a patent filed in 2016 not too old? I would strongly disagree, because usually what happens is you file a patent, then you use a year to get a priority application, and the actual patent protection may kick in only after 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5, or in some extreme cases after 10 years. So it's actually recommendable to start as early as you can.
Mm. And well, you are working for a company, but do you have the impression that also researchers, they take care about patents and they go to get some advice on it, or they think about filing patents?
That very much depends on the individual. We've got people who don't care at all. They publish every single detail as soon as it is available and do not care about IP at all. We have other people who cannot be stopped from inquiring all the time whether some new minute improvement could be patented. And I think it would be useful if people, like, if they are working on an exciting project, maybe consult informally with the patent attorney, maybe once a year discuss, or maybe every 6 months. And this does not necessarily immediately result in the filing of a patent application, but just keep people aware of what's going on, and sometimes unusual opportunities will present themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't see any further questions. So I say again, thank you very much for the presentation.
My pleasure.
And we go to the last presentation of the day. The last presentation is about relevant European initiatives in nanomedicine. So there is, of course, the Etpn, the European technology platform of nanomedicine. We heard in some talks before from the TAB, which is the Translation Advisory Board that has been born in the Etpn. And the speaker is Ruth Schmidt. Ruth Schmidt, she was born in Switzerland. She studied in Switzerland at the ETH in Zurich. And then she went for her postdoc to Norway, and she stayed in Norway since then. And after the postdoc, she joined SINTEF, which is a big independent research organization in Norway. And since 2019, she is chairwoman of the Etpn. And we're looking forward to your talk, Ruth.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to share my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So thank you for the nice introduction, and I hope everybody is still up for some more information. It's always hard to be the last one before dinner time. I would like to give you some information of some European initiatives that can be relevant for nanomedicine. And as Olaf said, Etpn will be one of those initiative packages under the heading of Etpn, and the other package that I will show you is the new ecosystem in Europe. So just to set the scene where we are with nanomedicine and where we are going, probably will go. So the definition that I use normally is nanomedicine is the application of nanotechnology to achieve innovation in healthcare. And as you all know, nanomedicine can be used in a wide range of applications: diagnostics, medical imaging, therapeutics, vaccines, regenerative medicine. And someone already touched the fact that there were a lot of expectations for a while, but we only had very few products really reaching the market, very few blockbusters, really good products. So what happened? Let me try to get my pointer. What happened is a few years ago, we really got to the bottom of this Gartner hype cycle curve in the trough of disillusionment. You may remember that there were publications about the hype of nanomedicine, no more funding, and so on. But then something happened. And this is really that I believe that nanomedicine now is in the slope of enlightenment, because there is a clear change from academic development to a systematic translation approach for very many areas. And the basic understanding that we have gained through all those years of the interaction between nanomaterials and biology is really showing results now. So we can build on that. And also in the period of 2017 to 19, 3 novel second generation products with really unique action mechanisms have reached the market, products that made things possible that are not possible without the nanomedicine. And of course, not to forget the 2 nanovaccines that reach the market now in a very short time frame. So I would like just shortly said what this means, this success story, because it represents a paradigm shift in nanomedicine. This rapid development and approval and administration of these vaccines is one of the most astonishing accomplishments in the history of medicine, and nanomedicine is a part of it. So this will really help the field of nanomedicine to change. One thing is that nanomedicine made it possible to deliver complex therapeutics that can't be delivered without. But also what we are experiencing at the moment is the largest phase 4 trial of a nanomedicine, because we have this huge global vaccination program and we get an enormous amount of data, especially safety data, but also efficacy data. And those data can be the foundation for future nanomedicines. So hopefully this will contribute to a paradigm shift from what are the unknown risks of nanomedicines that we had focused on all the time to what clinical solutions can we solve with nanomedicine. And hopefully this opens the door to translational nanomedicine applications beyond these 2 vaccines. So where do we go now? We have to use this large phase 4 trial to address, study, and understand the unknown risks. And then we can use this knowledge to shift away from the unknown risk to future applications. And we can use it for other diseases, for the treatment and for prevention. We can use it for other types of nanocarriers, because we only now get those huge amount of data for lipid nanoparticles, of course. And we can use it for applications with other administration routes. And also these LNPs can now be a control nanoparticle system for comparison. We always lacked this control when we developed something. Of course, then we have to proceed towards more complex systems, active targeting, combination drug delivery, and we have to adapt to the new health tech ecosystem. And what do I mean by that? At the moment, the healthcare is in a transition, and there is a new health tech vision that says providing integrated, innovative, and smart healthcare solutions for all European patients by promotion of innovative European health technology industry. And words like from reactive to preventive, to integrated healthcare, to a personalized healthcare. These are the important words going further on. And that means that the revolutionization of the healthcare will not only come from the science-driven revolution that we know best, but the science-driven revolution has to work together, hand in hand with the technological-driven revolution. And together, it will revolutionize the healthcare. And nanomedicine is a part of it, but nanomedicine can't go alone anymore. So the first initiative that I want to show you is Etpn. What is Etpn? Etpn is the European technology platform on nanomedicine, and it has the mission to shape and support the ecosystem of nanomedicine in Europe by defining R&D priorities, mobilizing stakeholders, and, very important, foster translation. Nanomedicine was created in 2005 as a common initiative from industry and the European Commission, and it changed into a legal form, into an independent association according to French law in 2015. It has about 120 member organizations from 25 European countries, and the members come from all the different stakeholder groups. The vision of Etpn is to address unmet healthcare needs with innovative nanotechnology-based solutions for the benefit of the patients. And Etpn has been a driver for nanomedicine since 2005 with white papers, roadmaps, action plan, vision papers, and the new strategic and innovation research agenda. And also the Etpn has encouraged a strong and strategic European public funding for more than 10 years, because many of the calls in H2020 were in fact proposed by the Etpn to the Commission. What is Etpn doing for the community and its members? Very important, Etpn started the Translation Hub and helped to build it up. I will get back to that. Etpn coordinated the Nobel Project, which was a coordination and support action in H2020. Etpn contributes to the strategy on one side by its SRE-IA and also by scientific commentaries and reviews, as Sue Metcalfe mentioned, the article that we wrote to really show that nanomedicine has a future. Etpn has working groups. They help with networking and information for the members. We organize the yearly Nanomedicine conference, and Etpn built the Nanomedicine map in a project where we were a partner. Unfortunately now, because of changes in the Google rights and accesses, we have to redo and reinvent the Nanomedicine map, but this is something we are working on, and it will very soon be available again. This is a possibility to do networking, for brokerage, because you can find you can search and find partners for your collaborations, and also it gives the stakeholders visibility. Etpn also participates in surveys of the Commission, so we sent answers from the nanomedicine community to many of the surveys for the different partnerships and for the Horizon Europe program. And Etpn has a vibrant webpage which has information on funding opportunities. Just now on April 14, we wrote quite comprehensive publication on the EIC calls and where nanomedicine actors really can apply for projects and which possibilities they have. So if you need information about EIC and the new calls that were just launched, the first ones, then go to our website. And we also have job offers. So there are a lot of different informations on the website. Now let's look into the Translation Hub. The Translation Hub is a central instrument of Etpn to support and accelerate the development of the best nanomedicine projects. It takes innovative projects in nanomedicine, helps with mentoring, characterization, and manufacturing, so that the translation to the clinic and the industry is easier than alone. It has 3 wheels: the Translation Advisory Board, which first was financed through the InnerTrans project and later on through the Nobel Project. Then we have the UNCL and the pilot lines. You already heard about the Translational Advisory Board, the TAB, because both Sue and Lorena, they used the TAB. It is a custom mentoring service for selected health tech innovators in Europe. It says free of charge for beneficiaries. This is until now, because unfortunately the Nobel Project ended in December 2020, but the Nobel community and the TAB are working very hard to find more funding and to look into new business models, maybe a mixture of free of charge and service for fee. So we don't lose this very important instrument. This is a core team of industry experts and entrepreneurs with a broad range of complementary background. And if you just look a little bit on the numbers, more than 130 projects have been supported. 6 projects have been reshaped. I hear someone else talking. So,
Maria, I think you have your microphone open.
Sorry.
So more than 3,000 hours of coaching have been performed. The TAB has also helped with fundraising. It has helped with creating startups. The next wheel is a European Nanomedicine Characterization Laboratory with a mission, when it was funded from the European Commission, to perform free of charge preclinical characterization of nanomedicines. Also in this case, the Commission decided to not continue the funding. So at the moment, the EUNCL doesn't have any funds to provide a service for a free of charge service, but you can still go to the website and we will help you to find a solution of a service for fee. So you will get the thorough and correct characterization, but unfortunately not for free at the moment. In the EUNCL, in a total, 34 applications were handled and 12 entered finally into the characterization step. The last wheel of the translation hub are the GMP scale-up pilot lines, which were funded as Horizon 2020 projects. There were 3 pilot lines funded for 3 different types of nanomedicines. Those don't get any more funding either, but on the 1st of March, an open innovation test bed in the area of nanopharmaceutical production has started, and I really hope that this open innovation test bed will continue the legacy of the translation hub and will work together with the original EUNCL group and with the pilot lines and with the TAB, so that we don't lose this translational competence in Europe and help. Very short about the Nobel Project. As I said, the CSA in the H2020 program. The main goal was to build a unique ecosystem to make healthcare revolution happen in Europe. And it was coordinated by Etpn, had 8 core partners, but in total, 20 partners were involved. And what is the legacy of Nobel? What are the results? The results that will survive the end of the project now. One is the continuum of integrated care. I will get back to that. One is the Health Tech for EU Alliance. I will get to that too. And the Health Tech tab we already have heard. And really, the Nobel team is still working on the continued business model for the Health Tech tab. When I talk about the continuum of integrated care, this picture shows the continuum of care. You are a well-being person, you have it good, then you got diagnosed, you enter the acute phase, you go into a post-acute phase, and either you get healthy again or you get into home care and chronic therapy. But if we add prevention and prediction and precaution, we might, and in these cases, nanomedicine can help. We might avoid acute phase. We might reduce the acute phase. And by adding monitoring and surveillance, education, and telehealth, we can accelerate recovery. So, and all this we do together with the patients. And that means from a continuum of care, we move to a continuum of integrated care. Now, the other bulk of information of initiatives, the new ecosystem. One new ecosystem is, of course, Horizon Europe. And if you compare Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, you can see that there is one major difference, very important for the nanomedicine community. The program Leadership in Enabling and Industrial Technologies doesn't exist anymore. We don't have an NMBP program anymore. So we can't, there won't be specific nanomedicine calls anymore. There won't be specific biotechnology calls anymore. The calls will be, will address the global challenges and the European industrial competitiveness in Pillar 2. And in the mission cancer. And then we also have new partnerships in Europe, because the partnership structure has changed a little bit, and there will be fewer partnerships. And I will show you two examples of partnerships that are important for nanomedicine. But I just want to tell you that, of course, development of novel technology still can be done, not in a specific call for nanomedicine, but in more open calls where you compete with all the other key enabling technologies. But there are possibilities, and we have had so long time to build up a basic understanding of nanomedicine that we should be able now, as they also say in the US, we should be able to compete with the other technologies. So the ERC and the EIC are possibilities where breakthrough technology still can find funding. So what happens with the European partnerships? In the health program of Horizon Europe, there is a placeholder for a European partnership fostering an ERA, an European research area for health research, the ERA for health. And it looks like at least the discussions go in the direction that several, up to 7 of the H2020 ERANETs are discussing to go together, to put forces together and fundings together and develop this ERA for health. Maybe even they may include some ERANETs from other clusters like cluster 2 and 5. And the main vision is making Europe at the forefront of science and innovation in health research by 2050. This is a co-funded partnership, and it will not be running before in maybe a pilot phase in 2023, but probably it will really start to run in 2024. Then industry is really changing. So we get a new ecosystem of the health tech industry. Industry is moving to cross industries, cross business models. And in the European Partnership on Health Innovation, medical device industry, pharma industry, biotech industry, and ICT industry are joining forces in a cross-sector collaboration to maintain Europe at the forefront of medical innovation. This is at the moment how it looks like, the Innovation Healthcare Initiative, IHI. We have all the industries on one side putting in a large amount of money. On the other side, we have Horizon Europe putting in a large amount of money. So in this institutionalized partnership, there will be calls for really, really a lot of money. the challenge for the scientific community is that they will use an innovation panel to get input from stakeholders to call topics and to their strategy. Only 2 representatives will be from the scientific expertise. So it means it will be very, very difficult to get input into this innovation panel. And this was a little bit the reason why in the Nobel Project, 8 ETOs joined forces. They said we need a new ecosystem also for the key enabling technologies. We cannot not only have a new ecosystem of the industry, also the technology providers need to be to build a new ecosystem, a cross technologies ecosystem, which then is a one-stop shop for health tech solution providers to address medical challenges. And out of those 8 ETOs that have joined forces, 7 already have signed the Memorandum of Understanding. So this is really going further, and it is called the Health Tech for EU Alliance. And you can see all the ETOs that are talking together. And also in this case, there will be a steering committee, an experts forum, and then this will be, the goal is to be a one-stop shop for IHI, for the European Commission, for EU for Health and Digital Europe to get technological solutions for the health challenges. So just to summarize the future R&D ecosystem and the gaps we still have in nanomedicine translation. Nanotechnology and nanomedicine can't go alone anymore. We have to, we can't be silos anymore. We have to work together to do, give the R&D evolution and to solve unmet healthcare needs with innovative nanotechnology-based solutions. Because we can't produce nanopharmaceuticals or nanovaccines if we don't have smart production, if we don't understand the disease biology, if we don't have the biomarkers. So everybody has to work together. But there are still some hurdles, of course, the gaps. One is the lack in access to relevant preclinical characterization and safety assessment protocols and facilities, especially now with EUNCL not funded anymore. The lack in access to scale-up and GMP production lines, the uncertainty and fragmentation in the regulatory framework, not knowing whether your nanomedical product will be a medicinal product or a medical device or a drug device combination product. Sometimes in the US, it's not the same as in Europe. So it's really still a fragmentation in this framework. Then there is also a lack in access to clinical trials that are adapted and relevant for nanomedicines. And there is a lack in education, in business management, in academia. But of course, now the SARS-CoV vaccines will contribute to at least reduce some of these gaps and challenges. Just to have a last slide about the ecosystem and the role of stakeholders and funding bodies. We have this technology pool. It is quite full now because we have worked on technologies over very many years. But and it has been filled by money from FP7, Horizon 2020, the EURONETs, the national funding. Then we have the unmet healthcare needs and the technology pool. And as we know now, the Horizon Europe, the IHI, the Mission Cancer, also the Era for Health, they will focus more on the translation and the unmet healthcare needs. So how do we refill the technology push? Because we can't just drain this pool. Otherwise, the fishing pond will be empty at one point. And here we really have ERC, EIC. Hopefully this era for health will be on both sides, having calls both for technology push and technology pull, and then hopefully the national fundings. Just the last slide. In September, Etpn is together with EMPA organizing the Nanomed Europe conference in St. Gallen, Switzerland, if it is possible. Otherwise, it will be at the same time as a virtual event. So I hope to see many of you there. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ruth, for the presentation and introducing us all those initiatives. I think we learned a lot about things that happen in the moment. And well, I think the Etpn and the TAP, they are really important instruments, but it was very interesting to hear about the future of all this. And well, I will look in the chat if there are questions. I don't see questions in the moment. So people who now in this moment say, I want to be part of this health tech for Europe, what is the place for them to go? It's still the Etpn, or what is the place to go?
It's Etpn, because all these ETOs like EPOS and the robotics and everything you saw, all the members of those will be in this health tech for EU alliance through their organization. So all the Etpn members will automatically be consulted when we are asked for input, and the same will happen to the health-related EPOS part, the health-related photonics part. But of course, those are Etpn. It will be the whole Etpn that is in the health tech for EU alliance. While for EPOS or photonics, it will be only the health-related part, because the others are not so. They have other parts.
Okay, so I see there are still no questions from the audience. So I thank you again. Thank you to you, Ruth. Thank you to all the speakers of today for the nice presentations and for the discussions. Thank you to my colleague Leonie, who organized with me. Thank you to Maria and all the Spanish team for the technical organization and everything. And of course, thank you to everyone, to the audience, even if it's a little strange that I'm just looking into a camera and I don't see any audience, but I see the numbers on YouTube. So thank you to everyone who listened and who participated. And well, now we have one last topic for today, and this is awarding of the poster prize. And so I give the floor to my colleague Cecily, who will award this poster prize. Cecily, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cecilia Mattison. I'm Vice Chair of EURONANOMED, and I stepped in from Ignacio today, who is the coordinator of EURONANOMED 3. I will present to you the winning poster for today's, from the review seminar we have had today. And I will share my screen. So let's see, do you see my presentation now?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Yeah, that's true. That's why. Just a second. So let's see. Now?
Yes.
Better? Yes,
Perfect.
good. Okay, so in this poster prize, we have been a small jury. The jury has been the moderators and the evaluators from following the review seminar, and also the EURONANOMED free chair, vice chair, and coordinator. We looked at the three main elements: the organization and appearance, the content of the poster, and the presentation that was given in the YouTube video. And out of this, we all picked two favorites of ours. And based on the different two favorites, we found a winner, and the winner is Manuela Salereno from the Instituto Ortopedio, and that was the poster from Nanoscores. So congratulations, Manuela. And your prize, let's see, it's hopefully next year the Continuum Summit will be a physical one. It's planned for May 2022, and you will go there for free. So here are numerous experts in the field of clinical nanomedicine determine the annual state of the art and the developments in the key fields of medicine. And you will meet a lot of people and will be able to network. So congratulations, Manuela. So that was it.
So thank you, Cecily. And I think that, yeah, that was it for today. Tomorrow, for all the EURONANOMED funded partners, tomorrow we continue at 9 o'clock with the second part of the review seminar. And hope to see you again tomorrow for the review seminar. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the speakers, to the audience, and spend a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.